My sister walked into the business I built and said, "Dad's giving IT all to me. I have kids to feed." I just smiled and replied, "Take a look at the ownership papers." When she did, "My name is Chelsea, and I started working when I was 16. Not because I wanted to, because I had to." My parents never seemed to have money for me, but somehow always had plenty for my sister Lily, who's 6 years younger than me. I remember the day I decided enough was enough. I needed new shoes for gym class. The soles of my old ones were practically falling off. When I asked my mom for money, you'd think I was asking for a diamond necklace. "Chelsea, do you think money grows on trees?" Mom sighed, reluctantly opening her wallet. "Here's $30. Make it work." $30 for gym shoes. I tried not to show my disappointment. Later that same day, I watched as my parents took Lily shopping. She came home with 3 new outfits, a stuffed unicorn, and a fancy electronic tablet for educational purposes. I did the math in my head. They'd spent at least $300 on her in one afternoon. It wasn't a one-time thing either. When I needed money for a school field trip, Dad made me explain exactly what educational value it had before handing over the cash with a lecture about responsibility. Meanwhile, Lily would throw tantrums in toy stores and walk out with whatever she wanted. My friend Emma's parents owned a coffee shop called Been There Done That. One day while doing homework there, I overheard them talking about needing weekend help. I didn't even hesitate. "I could work for you," I said, surprising even myself with my boldness. They hired me that day. I worked after school and on weekends. The pay wasn't much, minimum wage plus tips, but it was mine. I didn't tell my parents. I knew they'd somehow find a way to take it from me. For 2 months I worked and saved. I bought myself new shoes, clothes, and even started a small savings account. For the first time I felt a sense of control over my life. Then came the day it all blew up. Mom and Lily walked into the coffee shop on a Saturday afternoon. I was behind the counter, making a latte. The look of shock on Mom's face would have been comical if I hadn't been so terrified. "Chelsea, what are you doing here?" she demanded. "I work here," I said simply, continuing to make the drink. "Have for 2 months now." Mom didn't order anything. She just stared at me, took Lily by the hand, and left. I knew dinner that night would be interesting. When I got home, both my parents were waiting at the kitchen table. The interrogation began immediately. "Why didn't you tell us you were working?" Dad asked. I shrugged. "I didn't think you'd care." "Of course we care," Mom said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "How much are they paying you?" When I told them I made about $400 a month between wages and tips, I saw something change in their expressions. It wasn't pride, it was calculation. "Well," Dad said, clearing his throat, "since you're living under our roof, eating our food, using our electricity, I think it's only fair that you contribute. Half of what you make should go to household expenses." I stared at him in disbelief. "What?" "Lily needs new winter clothes," Mom added, "and we were thinking of signing her up for dance lessons. Those aren't cheap, you know." That's when I understood. This wasn't about me contributing to the household, this was about them taking my money to spend on Lily. "No," I said quietly, "it's my money, I earned it. I'm not giving you half of it for Lily's dance lessons." After that night, things changed. My parents did the bare minimum required by law. They fed me, bought me the cheapest clothes possible when I absolutely needed them, and kept a roof over my head. Otherwise, I barely existed to them. When I had a choir performance at school, they didn't show up. When I won an essay contest, they didn't congratulate me. It was like I'd been demoted from daughter to house guest, and not a welcome one. Thankfully, I had my grandmother, Eleanor. Dad's mom was nothing like him. She started coming to my school events, cheering louder than anyone else's parents. She'd take me shopping occasionally, and listen to my problems over ice cream sundaes. By senior year, I was working nearly full-time hours on weekends and after school. I'd saved almost all my money, applying for every scholarship I could find. I knew college was my ticket out. On graduation day, my parents showed up for exactly 5 minutes. They took a couple photos, then Dad checked his watch. "We promised to take Lily to the movies. She's been so patient sitting through this." They left before my name was called. But Grandma Eleanor stayed. She hooped and hollered when I walked across the stage and took me out for a fancy dinner afterward. 2 weeks later, at a rare family dinner, I decided to share my news. I got into State University. I start in August. "We can't afford college," Dad interrupted, not even looking up from his plate, "not with Lily's private school tuition." The smugness in his voice told me he'd been waiting to say those words for years. I smiled. "I don't need your money. I got a full scholarship. Everything's covered." Their forks froze midway to their mouths. "Well," Mom finally said, "that's nice for you." Then, as if my news meant nothing, she turned to Lily. "Tell Chelsea about your science project, honey. She won first place in her grade." As Lily launched into a detailed explanation of her volcano made entirely of store-bought materials that Mom had probably assembled herself, I realized I felt nothing. No anger, no disappointment, just nothing. The next day I packed my bags and moved in with Grandma Eleanor. She welcomed me with open arms. That summer was the best I'd had in years. I continued working at the coffee shop, saving as much money as possible for college. Living with Grandma Eleanor was nothing like living with my parents. She treated me like an actual person instead of a burden. I'm going to send you $1,000 every month for your housing, she told me one evening as we sat on her porch swing. Don't argue with me about it. Grandma, that's too much, I said, genuinely shocked by her generosity. She waved her hand dismissively. What else am I going to do with my money? Your grandfather left me well off, and I intend to use it to help the people I love. You're at the top of that list. In August, I packed up my car and headed to State University. The campus was beautiful, and my dorm room, while small, felt like freedom. My roommate Tara was from California and seemed nice enough. We weren't destined to be best friends, but we respected each other's space, which was all I really wanted. During my 4 years at college, I called Grandma Eleanor twice a week. My parents? They called maybe once a month, and the conversations were always the same. How are your classes? Mom would ask. Fine, I'd reply. That's nice. Did I tell you Lily made the honor roll again? They never visited, not once. When Parents' Weekend came around, I'd hang out with my friends whose families couldn't make the trip either. We called ourselves the Orphan Club and made it a tradition to go out for fancy dinners that weekend. I majored in business with a focus on financial management. I worked hard, graduated with honors, and immediately started job hunting. The thought of going back to my hometown never crossed my mind until I got an offer from Apex Financial, one of the top firms in the region. Take it, my advisor said when I told her about the offer. They rarely hire new graduates. Someone there must have been really impressed with your resume. So I moved back to my hometown but made sure to find an apartment far from my parents' house. I couldn't afford anything fancy, but it was mine. I didn't call to tell them I was back. Why would I? They hadn't even acknowledged my graduation. Grandma Eleanor, of course, was thrilled I was nearby again. Now I can fatten you up properly, she joked when she visited my new place, bringing enough home-cooked food to last me a week. My job at Apex was challenging but rewarding. I started as a junior financial analyst, which basically meant I did all the grunt work no one else wanted to do. I stayed late, came in early, and volunteered for the projects others avoided. After 2 years of non-stop work, I got my first promotion to senior analyst. With it came a nice salary bump, my own office, and more responsibilities. Instead of slowing down, I worked even harder. Mr. Thompson, the department head, called me into his office one day. Chelsea, I'm putting you in charge of the Richardson account. My heart nearly stopped. Richardson Enterprises was one of our biggest clients, known for being particularly demanding. Are you sure? I asked. Absolutely, you've earned this chance. Don't mess it up. He smiled, but I knew he was serious. For the next 3 months, I lived and breathed the Richardson account. I redesigned their entire investment portfolio, finding ways to increase returns while reducing risk. When I finally presented my plan to their board, they were silent for a full minute after I finished. Well, Mr. Richardson said finally, I think we found our new financial advisor. Not only did we keep their business, but they increased their investment with us by 30%. Mr. Thompson was ecstatic. He called a company meeting to recognize my achievement, gave me a substantial bonus, and increased my salary again. That night, I called Grandma Eleanor to share the good news. I knew you could do it, she said proudly. Now please tell me you're going to take a vacation. You deserve it. Actually, I am, I told her, and I've got something for you too. The next day, I visited her with 2 envelopes. One contained a beautiful diamond bracelet I bought her as a thank you gift. The other held 2 tickets for a luxury Alaskan cruise. You and me, I explained, as she opened the second envelope in shock. Next month, all expenses paid. For the first time in my life, I saw my grandmother speechless. Our cruise was incredible. Glaciers, whales, northern lights, we saw it all. I posted photos on social media, something I rarely did. Partly to remember the trip, and partly, I admit, to show off a little. Look at me now. 3 days after we returned, my phone rang. It was a number I rarely saw on my caller ID these days. Mom? I answered, genuinely surprised. Chelsea, darling. Her voice was syrupy sweet. It's been too long. In fact, we were hoping you'd come over for dinner this Sunday. Your father is grilling steaks. I should have said no. I knew there had to be a reason for this sudden interest in my existence after years of near silence. But curiosity got the better of me. Sure, I said. What time? 6 in Chelsea? We're so proud of you, honey. We always knew you'd do well. The lies were so blatant, I didn't even bother responding. I just told her I'd see them Sunday and hung up. That Sunday, I drove to my parents' house feeling strangely detached. The house looked exactly the same faded blue paint, same flower beds that Mom obsessed over, same basketball hoop that Dad had installed for Lily, not me. I'd never been athletic enough for his tastes. Mom opened the door before I could knock, her smile wide and welcoming. Dad stood behind her, actually looking happy to see me. It was disconcerting. Chelsea, Mom hugged me tightly. You look fantastic. So professional and successful. I returned the hug awkwardly. Thanks. They ushered me inside, offering drinks and appetizers like I was an honored guest instead of their daughter. The conversation was unnervingly pleasant, focusing on neutral topics like the weather and local news. Finally, when we sat down to eat, Dad cleared his throat. So Chelsea, tell us about your job. You work at Apex Financial, right? As some kind of manager? I carefully avoided answering my father's question about my position and salary. I knew exactly where this conversation was heading. "I'm doing well," I said vaguely. "The company is great. What about Lily? Is she around?" The change of subject worked like a charm. My parents' faces instantly shifted from eager to troubled. "Actually," Mom said with a heavy sigh, "Lily's at college in Westfield. We had to take out quite a substantial loan for her tuition. Plus her housing costs, meal plan, textbooks." Dad jumped in. "The economy's been tough on my business. We're barely keeping up with the mortgage payments, and now with these college bills." I put down my fork. "I'm sorry to hear that. College is expensive." They exchanged a look that confirmed my suspicions about this dinner invitation. Mom reached across the table and took my hand. "Chelsea, honey, we know we weren't always the most supportive parents. We made mistakes, terrible mistakes. The way we treated you compared to Lily, it wasn't fair." I sat there, letting their words wash over me. Were they genuinely remorseful or just desperate for money? Probably both. "We're so proud of you," Mom said, her eyes watering. "And we're hoping maybe you could find it in your heart to help your family. Just until we get back on our feet." There it was, the real reason for the sudden family reunion. I wanted to refuse, to tell them they'd made their bed and could lie in it. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the memory of Grandma Eleanor's words about not becoming bitter. Or maybe it was the realization that I could afford to help them without hurting myself financially. "How much do you need?" I asked. Relief flooded their faces, and Dad actually teared up. "Just enough to help with the bills and loan payments. Maybe $1,000 a month?" I nearly choked on my water. That was a significant sum, the same amount Grandma had given me for housing during college. But my recent promotion and bonus meant I could manage it. "I can do that," I said finally. "I'll set up a monthly transfer." They both burst into tears, thanking me profusely. I felt nothing, no warmth, no reconnection, just a vague sense that I was doing the right thing despite them not deserving it. When I told Grandma Eleanor about my decision the next day, she surprised me by approving. "You're a better person than they are," she said simply. "That's something to be proud of." Over the next few months, I saw my parents more frequently. Occasional dinners, sometimes with Lily when she was home from college. She hadn't changed a bit, still self-centered, still treated like a princess by our parents. But what struck me was her appearance. Her clothes were designer brands, her nails professionally done, and she sported a new MacBook and iPhone. I didn't mention it. I kept sending the money each month, and my parents kept thanking me with over-the-top gratitude that felt hollow. Then they started asking for more, small amounts at first. "The car needs repairs. Could you help with $200? The water heater broke. Would $350 be too much to ask?" I rarely said no. My career was thriving, and I told myself it was just money. At work, I was assigned a major project, restructuring our approach to corporate clients. If successful, it would likely lead to a department head position. I threw myself into it, working longer hours than ever. Finally, after months of work, my project concluded successfully. The CEO personally congratulated me, and the promotion I'd been hoping for came through, department head of corporate relations with a salary nearly double what I'd been making. I bought an expensive bottle of wine and drove straight to Grandma Eleanor's house to celebrate. "I'm so proud of you," she said, clinking her glass against mine. "But promise me now you'll take some time for yourself." "I will." I agreed. "Maybe I'll even start dating again." "Hallelujah." She laughed. A week later, I made time to visit my parents for dinner. Lily was home from college, and I noticed she had a new designer handbag that probably cost more than my first month's rent. "I got promoted," I announced during dinner, trying to share my accomplishment. A strange silence fell over the table. Then Mom said, "With your new position, you could probably afford to help us a bit more. Maybe $1,500 a month instead of $1,000? I laughed, thinking she was joking. I've already been helping for months. Plus covering all those emergency expenses. Lily rolled her eyes. "Don't be so selfish, Chelsea. It's not like you need all that money for yourself." Coming from her, with the 800 bag sitting next to her, it was too much. "No," I said firmly. "The amount stays the same." The rest of dinner was tense, with disapproving glances from all three of them. I left early, unsettled by how quickly their gratitude had morphed into entitlement. Months passed. Lily graduated from college, a fact I learned when Mom called to invite me to a celebration dinner. I arrived at their house expecting other guests, but it was just the four of us. Lily proudly announced she'd be celebrating her graduation with a luxury resort trip to Mexico. Mom cleared her throat. "We were hoping you might pay for Lily's trip as a graduation gift." I stared at them in disbelief. "Excuse me?" "It would mean so much to her," Dad added, "after all her hard work." Lily nodded eagerly. "It's only $14,000 for the package I want." I put down my fork. Lily hasn't earned a single dollar in her life. Why would I spend that kind of money on her vacation? "If you don't help your sister," Mom threatened, "don't consider yourself part of this family anymore." I looked at them, my entitled sister, my manipulative mother, my weak father, and felt nothing but release. "Fine by me," I said calmly. "And by the way, I'm stopping the monthly transfers too. You can figure out your own finances from now on." As I walked to my car, I heard them calling after me, but I didn't look back. When I got home, I immediately canceled the automatic transfer in my banking app. For weeks they bombarded me with calls and texts. I blocked their numbers. Emails came next, alternating between guilt trips and apologies. I filtered them to trash. A month after cutting ties with my parents and Lily, I received an invitation to Grandma Eleanor's 75th birthday party. She was hosting a big celebration at her house, inviting family members and friends from all over. I knew my parents would likely attend. She was still Dad's mother after all, but I figured we could avoid each other in a crowd. The day of the party arrived and I dressed carefully in a blue dress Grandma had always said brought out my eyes. I brought her a hand-painted teapot I'd commissioned from a local artist, knowing her love for unique tea sets. When I arrived, the house was already filled with people. I spotted my parents and Lily immediately. They were standing by the buffet table, already filling their plates. They saw me too, but turned away without acknowledging me. That suited me fine. I made my way to Grandma, who was holding court in her favorite armchair, looking regal in a purple dress with a corsage pinned to her shoulder. "There's my girl," she said, her face lighting up as I bent to hug her. Always on time, always thoughtful. I gave her my gift, which she opened immediately, gasping with delight at the teapot. "It's absolutely beautiful," she said, turning it in her hands to admire the hand-painted flowers. "I'll use it tomorrow for my morning tea." The party progressed pleasantly. I chatted with relatives I hadn't seen in years, caught up with some of Grandma's friends, and successfully avoided any interaction with my immediate family. Then came time for dinner. The meal began cordially enough, with everyone passing dishes and making small talk. When the main course was served, people began offering toasts to Grandma. My mother stood up, wineglass in hand. "To my wonderful mother-in-law on her 70th birthday, you've always been a beacon of wisdom in our family, and we're so grateful for your guidance over the years." Her words were pretty but hollow, and I had to suppress an eye roll. Then, to my horror, she turned in my direction. "And while I have everyone's attention, I'd like to address something. My daughter Chelsea has recently decided that family isn't important to her. She's turned her back on us despite her financial success, refusing to help her own sister with a simple graduation gift." A shocked silence fell over the table. My face burned with embarrassment and anger. "Linda," Grandma Eleanor said sharply, "this is hardly the time or place." But I'd had enough. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Since my mother has decided to air our dirty laundry at Grandma's birthday dinner, let me set the record straight." I looked around the table at the uncomfortable faces. For the past 3 years I've been sending my parents $1,000 every month because they claimed they needed help paying off Lily's college loans. Dad's cousin Martin, who worked at the state university board, frowned and put down his fork. "That can't be right. Lily received a full scholarship through the Legacy program. Your father made sure I knew about it when she was accepted. Her tuition and housing were completely covered." The table went utterly silent. All eyes turned to my parents, whose faces had drained of color. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. All this time they'd been lying to me? I suddenly understood why Lily always had designer clothes and expensive accessories while supposedly struggling through college on our parents' limited budget. They weren't using my money for her tuition. They were using it to spoil her, just like they always had. "Is this true?" Grandma Eleanor asked, her voice dangerously quiet. My father stammered, "It's not what it looks like." "What exactly is it supposed to look like?" I found my voice, shock turning quickly to rage. "You took $36,000 from me under false pretenses. You made me believe I was helping with education costs when you were just funding Lily's lavish lifestyle." My mother tried to recover. "We needed that money for other things, the house bills." Grandma Eleanor slowly stood up, her small frame suddenly imposing. "Robert, Linda, I think you should leave." "Mom, please," Dad began. "No," her voice was firm. "You lied to your daughter. You took advantage of her success and generosity. You are no son of mine right now." She turned to Lily, who was staring down at her plate. "And you? Did you know about—" Lily's silence was answer enough. "All of you, out of my house," Grandma continued. "And Robert, you should know that I will be revisiting my will. I have no intention of leaving anything to people who would behave this way." My parents and Lily left quickly, my mother in tears, my father red-faced with shame. The party dispersed soon after, guests making awkward excuses to leave early. I stayed to help Grandma clean up, both of us working in contemplative silence. "I'm sorry," I finally said. "I ruined your party." "Nonsense." She patted my hand. "You didn't ruin anything. They did that all on their own." In the weeks that followed, Grandma told me my parents called her constantly, begging forgiveness and pleading with her not to change her will. She was unmoved. I already changed it. She informed me one afternoon over tea served in her new teapot, "Everything's going to you now. You're the only one who's shown real character in this family." I sipped my tea, feeling sad but relieved. "I never wanted it to come to this." "Neither did I," she sighed. "But we can't control other people's choices, Chelsea. We can only control our own." I haven't spoken to my parents or Lily since that day. Occasionally I see their names pop up on my phone, but I never answer. Whatever they have to say, it's too late.